She didn't really love you. What she did was watch you closely, study every little reaction, memorize all your vulnerabilities, and use your empathy as her control panel. She knew exactly what story to tell, the one that made you lean in, want to save her, protect her, fight for her. But it was never about genuine connection. It was always about control. Remember that time she cried in your arms, when she said, "You're the only one I trust"? That wasn't love. That was the setup. She created the illusion of intimacy fast, intense, emotional, so you'd bypass logic, ignore your gut, and become addicted to the very thing that was slowly destroying you. What you thought was vulnerability, manufactured weakness. What you believed was trust, just a carefully crafted story. And what you mistook for love, a psychological prison, built from your own guilt and hope. By the time you realized something was wrong, it was already too late. Because you weren't just in love with her, you were in love with fixing her. This isn't just about heartbreak. It's about covert psychological warfare, disguised as affection. And it's more common than you might think. In this video, we're diving deep, exposing every hidden tactic, every silent weapon, and every reason why none of the pain you carry was ever your fault. If any part of this feels uncomfortably familiar, you're not alone. What you experienced wasn't a sign of weakness. It was psychological manipulation designed to look like love. And once you learn to recognize it, there's no going back. So stick with me. Over the next few minutes, we'll break down exactly how she did it, how she cast a spell over your mind. You were never taught to spot her coming because society only warns you about the loud narcissists, the arrogant, flamboyant types who shout, demand, explode. But the dangerous ones don't yell, they whisper. They enter your life wearing everything you ever wanted, soft, thoughtful, fragile. She doesn't take over the room, she disarms it. She doesn't talk over you. She listens deeply, so deeply that you feel truly seen, maybe for the first time. She doesn't seize power by force. She makes you hand it over willingly. This isn't the overt narcissist you read about in self-help blogs. This is the covert kind. The woman who hides behind mirrored needs reflecting your deepest desires back at you like a dream. She senses you're craving peace, so she becomes gentle. You long for real emotional depth. She opens up about her wounds. You're exhausted from all the surface-level love. She positions herself as different. She studies you closely. Like a mirror, then becomes exactly who you most desperately need her to be. But it's not real. It's not her. It's the version you wanted to believe in. And that's how covert manipulation works. Not by pushing against your boundaries, but by sliding right beneath them. She bypasses logic, skips red flags, and goes straight for your emotional core. Because when someone is bleeding in front of you, you don't question them, you rush in to rescue. And once you become the rescuer, you stop noticing you're the one being robbed. That initial rush, that deep emotional high, it wasn't love. It was bait, a vulnerability trap disguised as something sacred, designed to bind you to someone who never wanted to heal, only to feed off you. And when you finally start to question her, you've already convinced yourself it's okay. She's just misunderstood. She's been through so much. She just needs time. But it's not her wounds you're protecting. It's your belief that what you felt was real. Weapon 1. Manufactured vulnerability. She didn't wait weeks to open up to you. It probably happened within the first few conversations. Tears in her voice, trembling confessions, stories of betrayal, childhood wounds, the monsters who hurt her. And in that moment, your heart did something dangerous. It opened, not because she asked you to, but because she bled. That's manufactured vulnerability. It's not a slow, genuine unfolding of emotional intimacy. It's a calculated shortcut. It skips trust, shared experience, and time, and forces closeness. Through pain, she didn't tell you those things because she trusted you. She told you because she wanted you hooked. Most people wait to share their deepest scars. She knew that bleeding early would make you rush to bandage her. And as you bandaged her, you lowered your defenses. You stopped questioning, stopped analyzing, and started protecting. You thought you were being let in. But no, you were being recruited to heal her, to prove you were different from the others, to earn the version of her that only shows up in fragments, sweet, broken, needing you. What you didn't see was the shift happening underneath. You weren't falling in love. You were stepping into a role, the wounded healer. Carl Jung talked about this archetype, the one who tries to heal others to avoid facing his own pain, the one who believes he's saving someone, but is actually losing himself. And the covert narcissist plays this role perfectly. She hands you her wounds, not for healing, but for ownership. So when she lashes out, it's because of her trauma. When she disappears emotionally, it's her past. When she crosses lines, it's your job to understand. You're not dating a person anymore. You're justifying her. Here's the cruel irony. None of her stories may be lies. That's what makes it so convincing. They could all be true, but their purpose isn't connection or healing. It's leverage. You're not building a relationship. You inherited a case file, one that lets her dodge accountability and makes you responsible for every emotional explosion that follows. This isn't vulnerability, it's weaponized storytelling, and it's only the beginning. Weapon 2, emotional hostage tactics. At first, her emotions felt genuine, raw, unfiltered, even touching. You might have told yourself she was just sensitive, maybe even beautifully so. But soon, that sensitivity turned your life into a field of landmines. You never knew what would set her off. A glance at your phone for a second too long, a slightly late reply, a different tone of voice. Suddenly she's crying, or silent, or trembling with disappointment. And of course, at first, you'd rush to fix it. You're a good person. That's what you're supposed to do, right? Protect, comfort, take responsibility. But this wasn't a normal emotional dynamic. This was taking you hostage with her feelings. Whether you realized it or not, you were already negotiating with a psychological manipulator. Because these weren't mere reactions, they were tactics. The covert narcissist learned early that emotions aren't just feelings. They're tools. A tear at the right time buys her forgiveness. A sudden breakdown resets the blame. Going cold and withdrawing affection makes you desperate for her warmth. Even when you've done nothing wrong, you're not just in a relationship anymore. You're trapped inside a system, a cycle where her emotional states control your behavior and your peace. It depends on her approval, so you adapt. You start to shrink. You speak more softly, avoid certain topics, and study her mood swings like a weather report. You become fluent in the language of her emotions, even when none of it makes sense. And the worst part, you start to believe it's all your fault, because that's the real trick behind emotional hostage tactics. They flip the narrative. If she's upset, it must be you. If she's cold or distant, it's on you to try harder. But none of that is the truth. What you're facing isn't love, it's a system of control disguised as closeness. The more masculine your instinct to protect or fix or make her happy, the deeper you sink. She doesn't have to overpower you. She just makes you overpower yourself. Her pain becomes your problem. Her moods become your assignment. Her instability is now your career. And the worst part, it's never enough. No matter how many emotional fires you put out, she always finds a way to light new ones, not because she actually wants peace, but because being in crisis gives her the upper hand. This is how the covert narcissist breaks even the strongest people, not by taking you head-on, but by convincing you that your strength lies in saving her, even when it's tearing you apart. Weapon 3, gaslighting and reality rewriting. She doesn't yell. She doesn't get into shouting matches. She doesn't even argue fair, because she doesn't need to. She changes reality one conversation at a time. You say, "But you promised." She claims, "I never said that." You remember an event. Clearly, she calmly insists it played out another way. The more certain you are, the calmer and more confident she becomes. That's when it hits you. Not anger, not even confusion, but something worse. Doubt. Gaslighting never sounds the alarms. It comes in disguised as reason, as you're overreacting. Or, you always twist things. Or, maybe you're just too sensitive. At first, you defend yourself. But slowly, without even realizing it, you start defending her version of you. You stop trusting your own instincts. You question your memories, rethink your tone, wonder about your motives. Her words start to matter more than your feelings. That's how identity erosion begins, not in one disastrous moment, but in thousands of small edits. Moments when your reality is trimmed or repainted in order to protect hers. Eventually, you split inside. There's a version of you who feels and a version of you who performs, because showing real feelings feels like a risk. So, you adapt. You fall into survival mode, nodding to avoid fights, agreeing to avoid madness, smiling even as you're agonizing inside. This isn't emotional sensitivity. It's strategic, psychological warfare. Carl Jung warned, what you resist not only persists, but will grow in size. But a covert narcissist doesn't just resist her shadow. She makes you carry it. She lets you hold her guilt, piles her shame onto you. She can't face her own darkness, so she paints you with it. You find yourself adopting her moods, her logic, her guilt, apologizing for things you never did, taking on the role of the villain in a drama you didn't write. This is the final stage of gaslighting. You start to police yourself. You're not just tiptoeing around issues. You're the one laying all the eggshells, so she never has to raise her voice. Her silence replaces the truth. Her point of view becomes law. Your mind, that's her new territory, a prison she never had to build, because you built it for her, brick by brick, lie by lie. Weapon 4, performance addiction. At the start, her praise felt magical. That soft smile after you went out of your way, the way her eyes lit up when you got something just right, the rare moments of warmth after hours of cold shoulder. You started needing her approval. Here's the trap. She wasn't giving you love. She was giving you temporary permission to feel worthy. Suddenly it feels like you're auditioning for her every day, desperate for the role of good enough. That's performance addiction, a loop where love is a prize you have to earn, not something that should be given freely. Affection is delivered in small, calculated doses, just enough to keep you chasing it. You get hooked on the highs, because the lows now feel like condemnation. You'll do anything to get back to those moments where you felt valued. But here's the truth. You were never being seen, only judged. Her standards shift constantly. What impressed her yesterday is ignored today. What seemed like progress suddenly becomes failure. She keeps moving the target, because if you ever hit it, the game is over. She doesn't want love. She wants power. Power disguised as admiration. Power dressed up as growth. Power masked as your desire to be better for her. You keep telling yourself, if I just try harder, if I just fix everything, if I stop making her upset, maybe she'll love me like she did in the beginning. But here's the hard truth. She never did. That initial approval, it was bait. Now you're just trapped in endless self-correction. Not trying to hurt her, just desperate to win back. The version of her that only appears on her terms. She doesn't actually give you love. She gives you fleeting glimpses of love, just enough to recharge your hope, just enough that you keep trying. Over time, you don't even notice that you're not a partner anymore. You're just a performer in a never-ending silent audition, trying to earn what should have always come naturally. You start changing how you dress, how you speak, even how you think, all for standards that never stay still. The deepest wound comes when you start believing this is what love is: difficult, unpredictable, always something you have to earn. But it's not. Real love isn't something you have to perform for. That's just control, wrapped in a little validation. The longer you stay, the more you lose who you really were before the audition even started. Weapon 5, the emotional blackmail economy. You didn't just become her partner. Suddenly, you were the emotional butler, her on-call therapist, her crisis manager, her personal pain absorber. But when you needed her, suddenly she's too tired, too busy, overwhelmed. You learned the lesson fast. Her feelings always matter. Yours are inconvenient. This is the emotional blackmail system. You give non-stop. She gives back only when it suits her. Your emotional work is required, but hers is always pending. She expects you to always show up, always listen, always support her through the storm, no matter how much of the storm she created. But if you're hurt, exhausted, needing care, suddenly you're too sensitive, overdramatic, or not supportive enough. And then comes the killer. If you really loved me, you'd bet. Phrase is sabotage in disguise. It's not a request, it's a test. It makes your devotion feel conditional, like real love is only proven by how much you'll sacrifice. So you start crossing your own lines, bending your boundaries, silencing your voice, not out of love, but out of fear. Fear you'll be seen as cold, selfish, not enough. But this isn't love. This is emotional extortion. You're so used to carrying her pain, you start to feel guilty for having any of your own. You start believing your needs are immature, that starving yourself emotionally is actually noble. But real love doesn't feel like slavery. Needing support isn't weakness, it's human. A covert narcissist flips the script. She makes herself look self-aware and evolving, while secretly training you to be ashamed of your feelings. She doesn't just ignore your pain, she reads it. If you're sad, you're guilt-tripping. If you're angry, you're abusive. If you go quiet, you're punishing her. If you open up, you're too much. So you begin to abandon yourself, hide your sadness, bury your frustration, mute your joy, because all your emotions are now labeled a threat to the relationship. You become emotionally independent, not because you've actually grown, but because you've given up. And in the final layer of this emotional slavery, you don't just carry her emotional burdens, you pretend your own don't even exist. And all the while you tell yourself, this is what it means to be strong. This is what it takes to love someone who's broken. But real strength isn't staying in a system that erases you. It's realizing when love has become labor and stepping out of the emotional prison you never deserved. Weapon 6. Competence, assassination. She never outright called you stupid. She didn't have to. Instead, she'd ask small, seemingly innocent questions, offer helpful suggestions disguised as concern. In the beginning, it felt like help. She'd smile gently and say things like, "I'm just trying to help," or worse, "I know you mean well." But over time, those words start to feel less like support and more like permission to doubt yourself. Slowly, your confidence gets chipped away. What used to feel like certainty now feels like hesitation. You second-guess your every decision, big or small, what you wear, how you speak, how you handle situations you've managed your whole life. Suddenly, it's all up for debate. You find yourself seeking her opinion not because you want to, but because you're afraid of getting it wrong. This is what I call competence assassination, a slow, calculated erosion of your confidence, dressed up as emotional partnership. It doesn't look like control, it looks like care. She positions herself as the one with better insight, better instincts, better emotional awareness. You become the student, forever learning how to be better in her eyes. But the goalposts keep moving. With every correction, your masculine identity shrinks. Masculinity isn't just about toughness. It's about agency, direction, and trusting your gut to lead your own life. But under her influence, that trust rots away. You start believing her way is always right, that her emotional reading of situations is more accurate, that her feedback is the absolute truth. So now you ask before acting. You wait for approval. You check in before you make decisions you used to make without question. Not because you want to, but because she's trained you to doubt yourself. And that's how she wins. Not by breaking you loudly, but by convincing you to break yourself. Quietly you stop taking risks. You stop standing tall. You stop speaking with certainty. The moment you began seeking her approval for who you already were, was the moment she started rewriting your definition of strength. Weapon 7. Isolation. Protocol. She never directly told you to cut off your friends or avoid family. She didn't have to. Instead, every time you spent time with them, she made you pay an emotional price. Maybe she got unusually quiet when you came home. Maybe she sent a sad or angry text while you were out. Maybe she started a fight as soon as you walked in the door. At first, you thought it was coincidence, just bad timing, but eventually, the pattern became impossible to ignore. Every outside connection came with a cost. She'd say things like, "They don't really support us," or "I just feel like they don't like me." You'd notice yourself acting differently around your friends and family. Not because they threatened you, but because their presence caused wounds. Not commands, but guilt. This is how isolation begins, not with force, but with emotional consequences. You start choosing peace over connection, avoiding drama by avoiding people, skipping hangouts, canceling plans. Not because you want to, but because the emotional toll is just too high. Over time, she becomes your entire source of validation, the only one who gets you, the only one who really understands your heart. And because she's already rewritten your sense of reality, you start believing it. You forget the joy of laughter with friends. You forget the safety you used to feel with family. Those roots slowly cut away, not with orders, but framed as threats to your bond. Once she becomes your whole emotional world, she no longer has to work hard to control you, because the world outside her feels strange, unwelcoming, even dangerous. You didn't isolate yourself. You were trained to, gently, strategically, and repeatedly, and by the time you realize how alone you are, you're already too afraid to reach out. Not just because of her, but because of the shame she installed in you, shame for needing anyone else. Weapon 8. The guilt machine and hope addiction. She never asks for repayment, but she keeps an invisible ledger running in her mind, a tally of every sacrifice she's made for you, every compromise, every favor, every emotional wound she claims to have suffered for your sake. And every time you bring up your own needs, she flips the ledger open and reads you the debt. After everything I've done for you, you can't even try to understand me. That's the guilt machine. Once inside it, every boundary you set feels selfish. Every need you express becomes ungrateful. Every breath you take feels like betrayal. It's made worse because her memory isn't real. She forgets everything you gave, everything you sacrificed, every time you bent and broke to keep her stable. But she magnifies every tiny thing she's done for you, a compliment from months ago, a small kindness, a moment of warmth after days of coldness. Those moments become proof that she's owed your silence and sacrifice, so you stop asking, stop needing, stop keeping score. But she never does, and here's where the real trap is. You stay for the highs, those rare moments when she softens, smiles, holds you, when she seems human again. Those moments feel like heaven, because they only come after walking through hell. This is hope addiction, a psychological loop where your brain clings to rare rewards and convinces you there's still proof love is possible. But those aren't proof, they're crumbs, and she knows this. If she gave you consistent affection, you'd stop performing, you'd stop chasing, you'd realize you've been starving the whole time, so she rations it, not out of cruelty, but because scarcity makes control easier. And that's the cruelest part. What keeps you here isn't the pain, it's the belief that maybe, just maybe, tomorrow, she'll be the woman you saw at the start. But she never was, and she never will be, because hope isn't love, it's a leash you've been trained to wear. At some point, you stop existing as a person and start functioning like an emotional appliance, always on, always available, but no longer seen, no longer needed, just there to respond, absorb, perform. Your needs begin to feel like threats to the relationship. Every time you express pain, she pulls away. Every time you ask for support, the atmosphere tightens, so you adjust. You go silent. You start calling your boundaries selfish. You believe your feelings are problems to fix, not truths to honor. And that's when the real collapse happens. Not loud, not dramatic. But quiet and subtle, like a soul folding in on itself. You feel guilt for wanting love, confusion for your reactions, self-hate for not being strong enough to make her happy. But none of it is yours. It was installed line by line, moment by moment, until your internal compass no longer points to you. Carl Jung called this process individuation, the lifelong journey of becoming whole, of becoming yourself. But here, it's the opposite. You aren't becoming more you, you're becoming more of what she needs you to be, and what she needs isn't a partner. It's a tool, a function, a mirror that only reflects her. By the time you realize you've vanished, you aren't even sure what you looked like before you started fading. You can't fix her, because she never wanted healing, only control. Her psyche isn't broken, it's built this way, designed to feed on connection, not nurture it. To extract emotion, not share it. And the more you try to help her, the deeper you disappear. That's the hardest. Truth. Love won't save her, and sacrifice will only destroy you. Your freedom doesn't start when she changes. It starts when you stop participating, when you stop playing the hero, when you stop chasing the high. When you stop accepting crumbs and calling it connection. This is emotional sovereignty, the power to feel, think, choose, and heal. Without waiting for her permission. It means your pain is valid, your needs aren't too much, and your boundaries aren't flaws. They're the shape of your soul, trying to stand again, and you must let it, because the goal isn't to become her rescuer. It's to reclaim the warrior inside you, the man she worked so hard to silence. Not the man who fixed her, but the man who remembered himself, the man who walked through the fog, who looked at the wreckage and chose to rebuild. Because your power was never in fixing her, it was in finally choosing you. The most dangerous part. This looked like love. It felt intimate, it felt deep, it felt real, but it wasn't love. It was psychological warfare masquerading as affection. A crafted illusion designed to confuse, weaken, and bind. And now you see it. That is your strength. Because real strength doesn't come from holding on. It comes from having the courage to look honestly at what's breaking you, and name it for what it truly is. Carl Jung once said, "The shadow that you refuse to face will rise up and destroy you." But in this case, it wasn't your shadow, it was hers, and she projected it onto you so you'd carry the weight. She refused to face. Now it's time to set it down, to reclaim your center, to heal without shame, to rise, not as a man broken by love, but as a man reborn through clarity. If this resonated with you, subscribe, not just for content, but for truth. Your healing began the moment you saw clearly. Now, keep going. Would you like me to continue with the next part? She didn't really love you. She observed you, studied every reaction, memorized your weaknesses, and turned your empathy into her control panel. She knew exactly which story to tell, the one that made you lean in, want to save her, protect her, and fight for her. But it was never about true connection. It was always about control. Think back to the moment she cried in your arms, or the time she said, "You're the only one I trust." That wasn't love. That was the setup. She created the illusion of intimacy fast, intense, and emotional so you would bypass logic, ignore your gut, and become addicted to the very thing ruining you. What you thought was vulnerability, manufactured weakness. What you believed was trust, strategic storytelling, and what you mistook for love, a psychological prison built with your own guilt and hope. By the time you realized something was wrong, it was too late, because you weren't just in love with her, you were in love with fixing her. This isn't just about heartbreak, it's about covert psychological warfare disguised as affection, and it's more common than you think. In this video, we're not just exposing the tactics of a covert narcissist, we're breaking the spell she cast on your mind. If any of this feels uncomfortably familiar, you're not alone. What you experienced was not weakness, it was psychological manipulation dressed up as love. And once you learn to see it, you can never unsee it. So stay with me. Over the next few minutes, we will expose every hidden tactic, every silent weapon, and every reason why the pain you carry was never your fault. You were never taught to see her coming because society only warns you about the loud ones, the arrogant, flamboyant, obviously toxic, those who shout, demand, and explode. But the most dangerous kind doesn't raise her voice. She whispers. She walks into your life looking like everything you ever wanted: soft, thoughtful, fragile. She doesn't dominate a room. She disarms it. She doesn't talk over you. She listens so deeply you feel seen in a way you never have before. She doesn't take power by force. She makes you hand it over willingly. This isn't the narcissist you read about in self-help blogs. This is the one who hides behind mirrored needs, the woman who reflects your deepest desires back at you like a dream. She senses you crave peace, so she becomes gentle. You long for emotional depth. Suddenly, she opens up about her wounds. You're tired of surface-level love. She paints herself as different. She studies you like a mirror, then becomes what you most desperately need. But it's not who she really is. It's who you needed her to be. That's how covert manipulation works. Not by pushing against your boundaries, but by sliding beneath them. She bypasses logic, skips red flags, and goes straight for your emotional center. Because when someone bleeds in front of you, you don't question them. You rescue them. And once you become the rescuer, you stop realizing you're being robbed. That early rush, the deep emotional high, was not love. It was bait, a vulnerability trap designed to feel sacred while binding you to someone who never intended to heal, only to feed. And by the time you begin to question her, you've already convinced yourself she's just misunderstood, been through too much, just needs time. But it's not her wounds you're protecting, it's your belief that what you felt was real. Weapon 1. Manufactured vulnerability. She didn't wait weeks to open up. It started early, maybe the second or third conversation. Tears in her voice, trembling confessions, stories of betrayal, childhood wounds, monsters who hurt her. And in that moment, your heart did something dangerous. It opened not because she asked, but because she bled. This is how manufactured vulnerability works. It's not the slow unfolding of real intimacy. It's a calculated shortcut that skips trust, time, and shared experience and forces closeness through pain. She didn't tell you those things because she trusted you. She told you because she wanted you hooked. Most people wait to share their deepest scars, but she knew that when she bled early, you'd rush to bandage her. And in doing so, you lowered your defenses. You stopped analyzing, stopped observing, and began protecting. You thought you were being let in. You weren't. You were being recruited to heal her, to prove you're different from the others, to earn the version of her that only shows up in glimpses, sweet, broken, needing you. But what you didn't see was the shift. You weren't falling in love, you were stepping into a role. The wounded healer. Carl Jung called this archetype the one who tries to heal others to avoid facing his own pain, the one who believes he's saving someone, but is actually losing himself. And the covert narcissist plays this role perfectly. She hands you her wounds not to heal, but to own. Now, when she lashes out, it's because of her trauma. When she disappears emotionally, it's her past. When she crosses lines, it's your job to understand. You're not just dating her, you're justifying her. And here's the cruelty: none of the stories may be lies. That's what makes it more convincing. They may be real, but their purpose isn't connection, it's leverage. You're not building a relationship, you're inheriting a case file that absolves her of accountability and makes you responsible for every emotional explosion that follows. This is not vulnerability, it's weaponized storytelling, and it's only the beginning. Weapon 9. Emotional displacement. She often redirects blame. When things go wrong, it's never her fault. Instead, she points to something else, maybe your behavior, your reactions, or even events that have nothing to do with the relationship. She accuses you of being too sensitive. When she's the one constantly pushing your buttons, she'll label your frustration as anger that's out of control. Even when you're simply trying to express your feelings, this tactic shifts your focus away from her actions and onto you. You begin to question your own perceptions, your own feelings, and even your reality. It's exhausting. It quietly chips away at your sense of self and drains your emotional reserves, making it easier for her to keep control. Weapon 10. The silent treatment. One of her most powerful weapons is silence. When she's upset or wants something, she shuts down the conversation completely. No explanations, no reasons, just cold, deafening silence. This silence is a form of punishment, a way to make you feel small, uncertain, and desperate for her attention and approval. You try to bridge the gap, to make peace, to fix whatever might be wrong. But the truth is, silence is her tool for control. It gives her power by keeping you guessing, off balance, and trying harder to please her. Weapon 11. False empathy. She often appears deeply empathetic. She tells you she understands your pain and envies your strength. She confides in you, sharing her own sufferings and struggles, making you feel connected and special. But this empathy is false, a performance designed to hook you further. She uses your empathy against you, making you believe you're the only one who truly cares. This builds dependency, as you begin to feel responsible for her well-being and emotional state. Weapon 12. Love bombing and devaluation. Cycle at the start. She showers you with love and affection, what's often called love bombing. She makes you feel like the center of her universe. But this intense affection is a tactic, not a genuine emotion. Soon the love disappears. It's replaced by criticism, neglect, or coldness. You're left confused and desperate to win back the affection you once had. This cycle of love bombing and devaluation creates emotional chaos and keeps you hooked, chasing after a love that's never consistent or real. Weapon 13. Projection and blaming. She often projects her faults onto you. If she's dishonest, she accuses you of lying. If she's manipulative, she calls you controlling. If she feels insecure, she claims you're the one who's jealous or possessive. This constant blaming confuses you and makes you feel responsible for problems you didn't cause. It creates a distorted reality, where you're the problem and she's always the victim. Weapon 14. Minimizing and denial. When you try to express your hurt or concerns, she downplays them. She says you're overreacting, too sensitive, or making a big deal out of nothing. She denies her behavior or its impact on you. This erases your feelings and makes you doubt yourself. You start questioning if your pain is valid or if you're just imagining things. Weapon 15. Deflecting responsibility. Whenever she's confronted about her behavior, she deflects. She changes the subject, plays the victim, or accuses you of attacking her. She refuses to take accountability for her actions. This keeps you stuck in frustration and confusion, wondering why she won't acknowledge the harm she's causing. Weapon 16. Triangulation. She brings others into your conflicts, creating a triangulated dynamic. She might complain to friends or family about you to get validation, or she compares you unfavorably to someone else, making you feel inadequate. This isolates you and keeps you on edge, as you never know who might be involved or what's being said behind your back. Weapon 17. Boundary breaking. She repeatedly crosses your boundaries, whether it's emotional, physical, or mental limits. She disregards your no. You push back, she guilt trips or accuses you of being too rigid or not loving enough. This wears down your resistance and erodes your ability to protect yourself. Reclaiming your freedom and strength. You can't fix her because she never wanted to be fixed. She only wanted control. Her psyche isn't broken, it's built this way. designed to feed on connection without nurturing it, to extract emotion without sharing it. The more you try to help, the deeper you vanish. This is the hardest truth. Love won't save her, and your sacrifice will only destroy you. Your freedom doesn't begin the moment she changes. It starts when you stop participating, when you stop playing the hero, chasing the high, and accepting those emotional crumbs and calling it connection. This is called emotional sovereignty, the power to feel, think, choose, and heal without waiting for her permission. It means your pain is valid. Your needs aren't excessive. Your boundaries aren't flaws. They're the shape of your soul trying to rise again, and you must let it, because the goal is not to become her rescuer, but to reclaim the warrior inside you, the man she worked so hard to silence. Not the man who fixed her, but the man who remembered himself. The man who walked out of the fog, looked at the wreckage, and chose to rebuild, because your power was never in fixing her. It was in finally choosing you. The cruelest part about all of this, it looked like love. It felt intimate, deep, real, but it wasn't love. It was psychological warfare disguised as affection, a carefully crafted illusion designed to confuse you, weaken you, and bind you. But now you see it, and that is your strength, because real strength doesn't come from holding on. It comes from having the courage to look clearly at what's been breaking you, and naming it for what it truly is. Carl Jung once said, "The shadow that you refuse to face will rise up and destroy you." But in this case, it wasn't your shadow, it was hers, and she projected it onto you, so you would carry the weight she refused to face. Now, it's time to set it down, to reclaim your center, to heal without shame, and to rise not as a man broken by love but as a man reborn through clarity. If this spoke to something inside you, subscribe not just for content, but for truth. Because your healing started the moment you saw clearly. Now keep going.